सकल करुणया कोपी न कंथासितौ।
Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. And all glories to the members of the Prabhupada Disciples Association who are assembled here online in this Zoom call for our weekly class program based on the reading and chanting of the original books of His Divine Grace, which is very valuable to many people who are serious about finding the Guru Tattva, the truth. And this is the key element in this search for truth, is association, not only with the spiritual master, but with his devoted disciples who are committed to his service for their entire lives. Prabhupada would tell us, please try to devote one life to serving Krishna. Now you may think, oh my God, that's a long time. And it is, in a relative sense, for us who possess this body of so many years. But in the scope of eternal time, it's not significant. It's a flash in the pan, like the turning off and on of a light switch. So let us remember that each year we have a journey to follow in our efforts. And so that brings me to the point of, we just had the New Year's here in the material world, the modern society. We run on a different calendar, of course, but on this Western or universal calendar that we're following, it's now become 2024. And along with that, we have New Year's resolutions. Now, I was looking at my resolution of last year. I have one of my friends that Bhaktivedanta in this area who helps me put up reels on Facebook, that particular medium. So I've had 42,000 views of my reels last year. And the reel that at the beginning of last year that I put up was a resolution to chant my rounds. Oh, yeah. And so I thought, well, let's see what the calculation is, Balaram, in terms of the number of names. If you commit to chanting 16 rounds minimum every day, that's 27,648 names. 27,000. Now, if you multiply that by 365 days in the year, you come up with 10,091,520 names per year. 10,091,520 names per year. Is that a lot? Well, it's minimum. It's a minimum of 16 rounds a day. And so adding on some more, you could be up to 11 million, 12 million names a year. And in this way, you're marching on the progressive path back home, back to Godhead. So this is one of the resolutions that we should have in 2024 if we want to make advancement. Because it's a combination of things, attending the classes 3 times a week. And along with that, the following of the 4 regulator principles, which are seemingly difficult in one way, but in another way, it depends on probably on your age, a lot to do with it, or your desire, your personal desire. No illicit sex, no meat eating, no intoxication, and no gambling. So those principles should be followed as best as possible. And then read every day and listen to lectures. I know Balaram listens every day to a Prabhupada lecture. I do myself. And it's very interesting to hear our spiritual master speak with such depth of knowledge. I try to memorize exactly his words. It's difficult. It's very difficult. I don't know what it is. But I've been listening to the same lecture in my car. I'm afraid that the CD player will break. I got it working somehow. So I'm listening to it, and I just leave it every day. I listen to the same 3 lectures for the last 2 months. And I'm still trying to memorize what Prabhupada is saying, because the lectures are so informative and enlightening. And I want to just repeat exactly what he says. Now, some people may criticize us. Oh, you're saying these things, they seem so harsh. But the fact of the matter is, I'm simply repeating what Prabhupada says in his lectures, which are not harsh. They're the truth. Like Prabhupada will call people animals. He'll say they're like cats and dogs. So, oh, don't say that. Well, the behavior of the modern people in this world is similar to the animal life. So what are you supposed to say? Oh, it's not that way? It is that way. And we want to rise up above that bodily concept of life to the transcendental platform of spiritual understanding through association with the pure devotee, through his sound vibrations, his lectures, his letters, and his books. So these are part of the diet, the spiritual diet of the members of the Prabhupada Disciples Association are committed to follow. And we've come up with an oath of allegiance that we'll be reviewing with everyone moving forward this year. It's still in the editing process. And it's based on an oath from the past that ISKCON had, which was authorized by Srila Prabhupada, so that people feel a sense of commitment to their devotional practice by taking an oath, just like in a marriage. So it's a very positive opportunity for all of us with this group to make advancement in spiritual life by good association. Bad association is like a disease. It spreads. It's like a cancer, which I've had. It spreads and it can kill you spiritually. So seek good association always. And we're going to move forward. We've been studying. I don't see Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu here yet, unfortunately. So we'll wait for him, of course. And we're going to carry on with our reading of the wonderful diaries of Srila Prabhupada. We're at the end of the Jaladuta diaries, and we're reading different lectures or different discussions with Prabhupada on his journey here and what he went through. So it puts us back in time. It gives us an inside look into the thoughts of the pure devotee in real time back then. And very insightful for us. So we'll carry on here. So just before that, Prabhupada's saying, so that I'm just going to read, Prabhu, the last paragraph. It's okay. You don't have to read it. So it gives us a little intro into what we're doing. Yes, at that time it was at 2nd Avenue. So then Ray Ram took the help of a lawyer. He took the case, then he'll give me a permanent residence. So he was extending only, and each time he was taking $150. So in this way, I entered into 1965, September up to July, up to May. And then in May, the month of May, there was a heart stroke. Sorry, that was 67. And then Prabhupada says, Trivikram speaks, he says 66. Prabhupada, 66, yes, 66. Yes, then after 1.5 years, sorry, no, that was 67 then. That's right. So he had 2 heart attacks on the boat, and then a 3rd heart attack in 67. Prabhupada, because the time was taking extension, then in 1967, in July, I thought, now the health is broken. I was very sick after heart stroke, so I thought, now I shall not exist. So let me go to Vrindavan and die there. So I came back in July 1967. So this Brahmananda and others, they were crying when I got on the boat. The heart was so weak. So we went back to India by boat. So probably, no, by plane, I think. Pusta Krishna from San Francisco. Prabhupada at that time, I got some money, 5,000 was given by Jayananda. He gave me 5,000 and Brahmananda also gave me. So I spent some money for acquiring some. I had about 6,000. So then I purchased ticket coming back with Kirtananda. In this way, came back to India. Hari sir, you were just saying, and again, Prabhupada, and again, I paid 5,000 rupees to Kirtananda to come back aside. What is that? Kirtiraj, Radha Ballava. Kirtiraj, Prabhu bought this for your rocking chair. So he's talking about where he's staying. Prabhupada, Radha Ballava, should I put it on? Prabhupada, rock and roll, devotees laugh. He's become accustomed to the Western culture already. Rock and roll. Hari, sorry, so when did you come back again? Prabhupada, I came back in 1967, December. Hari, sorry. Oh, you weren't gone long then. Trivikram, 6 months. Prabhupada, yes, July to December. Trivikram, and your health was better? Prabhupada, not very good. So many troubles. When I came back, there's always a bad sound going on, gong, gong, gong in my brain. Very disturbing in this Los Angeles. I was staying in some, I forgot, La Cignega, Trivikram. No, La Cignega later on. I was staying near Pico. Is that Pico? There was, I think, Washington Boulevard near there. I forgot that quarter. Excerpt from a room conversation with His Divine Grace in Vrindavan on September 9th, 1976. So again, he's recalling the past for us. Because as soon as the ship stopped, Commonwealth Pier, Boston, the immigration department came and took their papers. So I entered America in Boston. There was no checking in New York. The ship stopped in Boston. The official entrance was done there. Then I came to New York. It is just like one day's travel. That was, by the way, September 19th, 1965. Harikesh. And then you went directly to Pennsylvania by bus? Prabhupada, yes. Then one agent appointed by my host, Gopal Agarwal, he was in Butler. So he arranged with some professional, what is called host. Harikesh, travel agent? Prabhupada, maybe travel agent. He came to see me that I'm sent by Gopal Agarwal. So I'll arrange for your dispatch. You come with me. Hari, sorry. Dr. Agarwal was your sponsor? Prabhupada, yes, his father came to see me sometime in Agra. His father and mother came. Hari sorry, and then they suggested that he be your sponsor. Prabhupada, this is interesting here. It was all by chance. Of course, Krishna's plan. I was for a few days guest at his father's place in Agra. I did not know that his son is in America, so he was talking about his family. He was a little sorry that his eldest son went to America to study electric engineering, and he was entrapped by an English girl, and he married and settled there, and he did not come back in this way. So I took the opportunity that, why don't you ask your son to sponsor me? Here's Krishna speaking. I wanted to go to America, so I did not know how seriously he took it, but simply I told him that, why don't you ask your son to sponsor me at least for 1 month? So I'm thinking of going to America under the order of his spiritual master, Bhaktivedanta Saraswati. Then that was talking, beginning and end, that's all. I did not know that he took it very seriously. Then after 2-3 months, some documents came. I was receiving my letters in a post box. So when I left Delhi, I used to keep my key of post box with some nice bookseller, Atmaram. He was manager. So he opened that. He got the documents. That is no objection certificate, sponsor and everything. I was out of Delhi. So you can see the hand of Krishna working to save all of us from repeated birth and death by the grace of our spiritual master, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. We'll move forward with, that was amazing. We'll move forward with the chanting of Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, a bhajan that Srila Prabhupada chanted before each class. And then after that, our reading of Caitanya-caritāmṛta as it is, unedited, by His Grace Yaśodā-nandana Dāsa Prabhu. I'm glad he's on the screen, from Twain Harte, California, here on 2 days after the beginning of 2024. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Yaśodā-nandana Dāsa Yaśodā-nandana Dāsa Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yaśodā-nandana Dāsa Yaśodā-nandana Dāsa Yamunā-tira Banacārī Yamunā-tira Banacārī Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Jaya Muspat Paramahansa Parivrajaga-ācārya Sattva Small Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava ki Jai Nāma-ācārya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Śrīmatī Gaur Bhaktamani ki Jai Sri Radha Krishna Mokh Gopinath Sam Khanda Radha Khanda Giri Govardhan ki Jai Vrindavan Dham ki Jai Navadvip Dham ki Jai Ganga Maya ki Jai, Jamuna Maya ki Jai, Guru Dwarka Dham ki Jai, Swami Bhaktivedanta ki Jai, all glories to the Assembly. All glories to the Assembly. Thank you very much.
All glories to you, Srila Prabhupada. Glories to you, Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. O my Lord, Sri Krishna, the son of Vasudeva, the all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you from Srimad Bhagavatam 1:1:1. Narayanam namaskritya naram cheva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudirayet. One should utter the means of conquest, Srimad Bhagavatam or Sri Caitanya-caritāmṛta, after offering respectful obeisances, 1, to the personality of Godhead Narayana, 2, to the Nara-Narayana Rishi, who is the supermost human being, 3, to the Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, then 4, to Srila Vyasadeva, the author, from Srimad Bhagavatam 1:2-4. Welcome everyone to this reading and discussion on Sri Caitanya-caritāmṛta. We will be reading from the original non-edited, non-adulterated version, the 1974-1975 version. Before we start the reading, we will read a few selected verses from the Adi Lila, Caitanya-caritāmṛta, chapter 1, text 18-22. Jai Jai Sri Caitanya Jai Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Glory to Sri Caitanya and Nityananda. Glory to Advaita Chandra, and glory to all the devotees of Sri Gaura, Lord Chaitanya. Text number 19. 18 Thakur Gaudiya ki Karya Chenayatmasat Etinera Charana Bandhan Tire Morenat. These three deities of Vrindavana, Madan Mohan, Govinda, and Gopinatha, have absorbed the heart and soul of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, followers of Lord Chaitanya. I worship their lotus feet, for they are the lords of my heart. Text number 20. Grante Rarambi Kari Mangala Charana Guru Vaishnav Bhagavan Tinera Smaharanam. In the beginning of this narration, simply by remembering the spiritual master, the devotees of the Lord, and the personality of Godhead, I have invoked their benedictions. Adi Lila 120. Text number 21. Tinera Smaraneoi Vigna Vinashana Anayaseoi Nijavanchita Purana. Such remembrance destroys all difficulties and very easily enables one to fulfill his own desires. Text number 22. Se mangala charanai trivida prakar vastu nirdesha shiravada namaskara. The invocation involves three processes: defining the objective, offering benedictions, and offering obeisances. Today we will be reading from chapter 4 of the Adi Lila, from text number 126, all synonyms, translations, and purports by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda, Founder-Ācārya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, also known as the Krishna Consciousness Movement. Nija prema svadi murahai ye allada tahag hoite kati guna Radha prema svada. Nija own prema love, asvade in tasting, mora my, oya there is, ye whatever, allada pleasure, tahoeti then that, kotiguna 10 million times greater, Radha of Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī, prema asvada the tasting of love. Translation: whatever pleasure I get from tasting my love for Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī, she tastes 10 million times more than me by her love. Text 127. Amiyo eche paraspara viruddha dharmasraya Radha premato eche sada viruddha dharmamaya. Ami, I, yoeche, just have, paraspara, mutually, viruddha dharma, of conflicting characteristics, ashraya, the abode, Radha prema, the love of Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī, toeche, just so, sada, always, viruddha dharmamaya, consist of conflicting characteristics. Translation: just as I am the abode of all mutually contradictory characteristics, so Radha's love is always full of similar contradictions. Text 128. Radha prema viduyara badite nahitani tatapi sekshane kshane badaye sadai. Radha prema, the love of Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī, vibhu, all-pervading, yara, of which, badite, to increase, nahi, there is not, tani, space, tatapi, still, se, that, kshane, kshane, every second, badaye, increases, sadai, always. Translation: Radha's love is all-pervading, leaving no room for expansion, but still it is expanding constantly. Text 129. Yahavai guru vasti nahi sunishchita, tatapi guru dharma ghorara varjita. Yaha, which, vai, besides, guru, great, vastu, thing, nahi, there is not, sunishchita, quite certainly, tatapi, still, gurura, of greatness, dharma, characteristics, gaurava varjita, devoid of pride. Translation: there is certainly nothing greater than her love, but her love is devoid of pride. That is the sign of its greatness. Text 130. Jaoeti sunirmala dvitya nahiyar, tatapi sarvadavamya vakravyavahar, yaha oete, than which, sunirmala, very pure, dvitiya, second, nahi, there is not, ara, another, tatapi, still, sarvada, always, vamya, perverse, vakra, crooked, vyavahara, behavior. Translation: nothing is purer than her love, but its behavior is always perverse and crooked. Text 131. Vibhurapi pakalayam kalayam sadavriddhim gururapi goravacharya vihinaha muhurupachita vakrimani shuddho jayati muradvishi radhika nuragaha vibhuhu, all-pervading, api, although, kalayam, making, sada, always, abhivriddhim, increase, guruhu, important, api, although, gauravacharya vihinaha, without proud behavior, muhu, again and again, upachita, increase, vakrima, duplicity, api, although, shuddhaha, pure, jayati, all glories to, muradvishi, for Krishna, the enemy of the demon Mura, radhika, of Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī, anuragaha, the love. Translation: all glories to Radha's love for Krishna, the enemy of the demon Mura. Although it is all-pervading, it tends to increase at every moment. Although it is important, it is devoid of pride, and although it is pure, it is always beset with duplicity. Purport. This is a verse from the Dana Keli Kaumudi 2 of Srila Rupa Goswami. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Śrīmate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Bhakti Siddhanta Shishyaya Bhaktivedanta Namine Prasannaya Prashantaya Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Bhagavad Vandanam Kadhyam Guru Vandana Purvakam Kshiram Sharkara Yuktam kadatihi visheshatah adadanastrinam danter idam yache punaha punaha Śrīmadurhu papadam bhoja dhulisyam janma janmani amsho bhagavatu smyaham sadadasu asmi sarvata tat kripa pikshako nityam tat prishtashat karomi svam Sri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we want to thank everyone for attending this very auspicious transcendental event, the hearing of the Sri Caitanya-caritāmṛta. As we have discussed several times before, this is a very special literature. Even the circumstances under which this was translated by Srila Prabhupada is very auspicious, very auspicious. We know in this material world there are always problems. Just like our good friend Balaram Prabhu in Australia last week was mentioning how they had a hurricane or some kind of, I don't know what they call it over there, a tornado or a cyclone, and there was problem with the electricity. Sounds very similar to what we occasionally experience here in California in the mountains. But basically, there is always some kind of miserable condition. So today we had to go down the mountain from certain medical issues and other appointments. And on the way down, I put the tape of Srila Prabhupada chanting Vandeham and Hare Krishna, Sri Krishna Chaitanya and Hare Krishna with Vishnu Jan Swami singing. And Srila Prabhupada was basically playing the mridanga. And it's funny because my spouse, Absar, she said at one point, who is it that's playing the drum? Now, she must have listened to this many times, but she remarked, who is it that's playing the drum? It's so crisp. I said, that's Srila Prabhupada. And she says, oh, this is very special. Later on, I had a very nice conversation with Dharma Bhavana Prabhu in Dallas, Texas, and his good wife. As we've discussed several times, Dharma Bhavana is very active preaching the message of Srila Prabhupada and the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to many persons in the Dallas area. Despite so many impediments from various persons, he still perseveres. And this is a great inspiration. The preaching of Balaram Prabhu, the preaching of Aprikata Prabhu in Montreal, the preaching of Vishwakarma Prabhu in Hamilton, Ontario, the preaching of Balaram Prabhu in the Gold Coast. There are so many good examples of devotees, despite various kinds of difficulties, different kinds of conditions, which are not always favorable, they persevere to present the unalloyed, pure message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as presented by Srila Prabhupada. And it's basically our good fortune. Because we know in this material world, there will always be some problem. Last night, there was a snowstorm in the mountains, and I didn't know if we were able to come down the hill. We live on a pretty steep hill in the forest. So very early this morning, a gentleman who lives up the road in the forest, he came with his little tractor and he plowed the road. That made it a lot easier to come down. The obstacles that were presented by various demigods, Adi Daivika Klesha, were removed by the arrangement of Krishna. So we see this on a regular basis. Prabhupada used to say, if you make one step towards Krishna, Krishna will make 10 steps towards you. Prabhupada also said, don't strive so much to see Krishna, but act in such a way that Lord Krishna will want to see you. So this is the great transcendental benediction that Prabhupada has given in the pages of Sri Caitanya-caritāmṛta. Some of this is very highly elevated discussion, very elevated discussion. And it can be understood by submissive oral reception. This has nothing to do whether one is intelligent or very scholarly or knows Sanskrit or Bengali, whether one is a man or a woman, whether one is a new devotee, old devotee. It has nothing to do with that. This transcendental literature and message can only be understood by devotion, by hearing. I've often told an example, the story how Srila Prabhupada was once asked by one of his senior devotees, of everything you've taught, what is the most important? And Prabhupada replied, that verse from the Shvetashvatara Upanishad, Yasya deve para bhaktir, yata deve tata guru, tasyete kachitayartaha prakashanti mahatmanaha. For those souls who have implicit faith, strong faith, both in the spiritual master and the Supreme Lord, for them, all the purports, all the meaning of the Vedic literatures is revealed. Because sometimes devotees ask, oh, I may not know Sanskrit or Bengali, I may not have so much experience. That is irrelevant. That's irrelevant. There was one devotee, Sudama Maharaj, who did the service in Japan, who opened up the movement in Japan. He once went to Srila Prabhupada and asked him, Prabhupada, I don't really know so much Sanskrit or Bengali or know the philosophy like many of your other disciples and other senior men or other sannyasis. I don't really know. Prabhupada, how should I preach? Prabhupada, you just read my books and explain them in your own words. Very simple. So we know what success Prabhupada had. Just like today we were hearing how Srila Prabhupada had suffered a heart attack and went back to India in 1967, not knowing if he was going to survive that most recent heart attack. And he stayed there for several months and then came back. But this is the arrangement of the personality of Godhead. Just like recently we've been reading in the Bhagavad Gita from chapter 10, what Prabhupada described the 4 essential verses of the Bhagavad Gita in chapter 10, text number 8, 9, 10, and 11, where it is described the unique position of Krishna, the very special position of Lord Krishna, and how Krishna protects his devotees. In text number 10, chapter 10, it is described, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayanti te. To those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. In the next verse, there's another beautiful pearl of wisdom. Tesham evanukam partam amajnanajam tamaham nashayami atma bhavastu jnana dipena bhasvata. Out of compassion for them, I, dwelling in their hearts, destroyed with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. So this is the mercy of Krishna upon his devotees, that he gives them the understanding, gives them the knowledge, gives them the remembrance, so that they can understand how to go back home, back to Godhead. Somebody recently raised the question, why is it that Krishna allowed so many of the events that took place in 1977 in Vrindavan with Srila Prabhupada? And my basic answer was, well, there's a lot of events that take place that may be beyond our understanding, beyond our realization. For example, Prahlad Maharaj, although a great saintly devotee, was harassed by his father, basically was persecuted by his father. The 5 Pandavas were harassed by Duryodhana and the other Kurus. They were deprived of their kingdom. Their wife was insulted. So many tribulations and difficulties happened to them. Haridas Thakur was flogged for 21 places in 21 different markets. And out of his compassion for his persecutors, they told him, oh, you are not dead after 21 floggings. The king will kill us if he tells that you're still alive. He says, you just throw me in the Ganges. They threw him in the Ganges, he survived. And we see in the case of our Srila Prabhupada, 2 heart attacks on the boat. And a year and a half later in New York, there was another heart attack. But we know that there was protection. Krishna promises. Krishna promises. In the Bhagavad Gita also, there's a description, Ananyas chintayanto mam ye janaha paryupasate, tesham nitya biyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. That Krishna always protects the devotees. There was one lecture where Srila Prabhupada was explaining how in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is explaining, Name bhakta pranashyati, that Arjuna, you can tell the whole world that my devotee will never perish. This is the promise of Lord Krishna. This is the solemn promise of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we see that the special protection of Krishna is there. We've also heard from Srila Prabhupada himself that when his Guru Maharaj was in Nabadweep, some envious caste Brahmins from Nabadweep tried to bribe the police 25,000 rupees, which was a very large amount at that time, so that they would not interfere with their sinister plan to kill Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, because he was so influential and powerful. They became afraid of their so-called guru business. So the point is that Krishna reveals and protects his devotees. Coming back to that point, why do we see that Krishna sometimes allows certain situations which may be difficult, if not impossible, to understand? Just like in the Caitanya-caritāmṛta, there is description of the 6 sons of Advaita-Acārya. 3 of them deviated, and 3 of them basically followed in the footsteps of Advaita-Acārya. And when Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami was analyzing that situation, he describes the word daivera karana, that sometimes by the will of providence, these situations take place. It may not be possible to understand by mundane logic or intelligence or reason, just the way it is. Just like we see in the Srimad Bhagavatam, that Maharaj Parikshit, who was a faultless, pure devotee, an exalted king, was cursed by a young Brahmin boy to die in 7 days. In Prabhupada, in various purports, he's analyzing this and says sometimes there are reverses in life, but we should know that there's always the plan of the Lord. There's always the superior arrangement of providence and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Same thing for various events that took place in 1977, which sometimes may be bewildering, may be difficult to understand, or even contradictory. But we should be very faithful and understand that not a blade of grass moves without the will of the Supreme. Everything happens for a reason. And simply we should continue our program of hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Caitanya-caritāmṛta, and repose our faith to Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, this is a very important point, because when we read some of these passages from Sri Caitanya-caritāmṛta, some of them can be quite esoteric, not so easy to understand for a common person. What we know from Prabhupada's teachings, but if we just hear regularly, we will eventually understand. When the Nectar of Devotion came out in 1970, as we know, the Nectar of Devotion was a beautiful translation of the famous book by Rupa Goswami, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the topmost treatise on the science of bhakti in the Gaudiya Sampradaya. When that book first came out in Los Angeles in July of 1970, some devotees approached Prabhupada and they said, Prabhupada, this book seems difficult to understand. There are some sections in this book, especially toward the end of the book, that are a little complicated and difficult to understand. And Prabhupada's reply was, if you don't understand, just read it again. And devotees told Srila Prabhupada, well, what if we read it again, but we still don't understand? Prabhupada said, then you read it again, and one day you will understand. So in other words, if we just devote our sense of hearing to hear these great transcendental literatures, we know for a fact that the truth will be revealed, the proper understanding will come. That is the promise of Krishna. That is the promise of Krishna's pure devotee. Very important point. The pure devotee is always directly in contact with Krishna. Directly in contact with Krishna. And whatever arrangements he makes, whatever promises he makes, that is guaranteed by Krishna. Just like we see in the Mahabharata, that Krishna protected Draupadi. Draupadi was the wife of the Pandavas, and there was an attempt to disrobe her in the presence of all the wicked Kurus. And she offered a prayer to Krishna, Pratignatava Govindana me bhakta pranasyati, that my dear Govinda, you have made a promise to the whole world that your devotee will never perish. Name bhakta pranasyati. Iti samsmritya. By remembering this again and again, pranam sandarayamyaham, I maintain my life. Now this is a very highly exalted situation, example of pure devotion, something we should aspire for. We should not be fooled by the behavior of neophytes and ambitious political persons, who often will misrepresent the teachings for political agenda, for personal agendas. Simply, we should stick to the teachings of Prabhupada, follow the chanting properly, hear the message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and gradually everything will be revealed. That is the promise of Krishna. That is the promise of Srila Prabhupada and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol, glories to Srila Prabhupada. And I want to thank you very much for your wonderful explanation of these verses and the understanding of them for the benefit of everyone in this group. Because Prabhu's, the most important principle in spiritual life is to have a bona fide spiritual master. That is the essence of knowledge, proper transcendental knowledge. And just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master, render service unto him. And the self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. So this principle of Guru Tattva is the most important principle in spiritual life, especially for an aspiring student. Why? Because the business of Krishna can only be properly explained by the pure devotee. Here in this verses, Balaram, we see that Krishna Das Kaviraj is explaining about the intimate relationships between Radha and Krishna. So all of a sudden we're jumping from the lotus feet, from the Bhagavad Gita, the Srimad Bhagavatam. This class, the Caitanya-caritāmṛta, is a very advanced literature. It's not just for, let's put it this way, for beginners necessarily that are not adhering to spiritual practice of chanting the rounds and following the regulator principles, offering their food, having the whole combination of practice in their life so that they have an insight, and studying the books extensively. So this is a very intimate look at spiritual life. And think about it, Prabhus, how insignificant we all are. We're simply minor players in the universe here, very minor. And we're making an effort to, by the grace of Srila Prabhupada, to rise up to the practice of devotional service without offenses. And these pastimes, they're the highest level of spiritual knowledge, the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. And these confidential pastimes, they can only be explained to us properly by Srila Prabhupada. This is really what the essence of our Sangha is, to stress Prabhupada as the bona fide spiritual master and all of us as his bona fide disciples. Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, if you could further elaborate. Is he there? Maybe Dharma Bhavana, you could carry on with the discussion. In Dallas, Texas. Sorry to put you on the spot like that. Your microphone, please. No microphone.
There we go. I think, can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yeah, we can see you too. We can see you.
Yeah, I was just appreciating some of the topics spoken about today. The verse, Yasya Devi Parabhakti Tata Devi Tata Guru. And it may be a little bit worth reviewing how to make have some understanding of Bhagavad Gita, that we're not this body, that Krishna is the Supreme Lord, is not so much a matter of logical study. That can be there, but when Krishna reveals to us what these means, how it works, how the Lord reciprocates with his devotee, and if we get a little bit of understanding by just Krishna being kind to us, then that's really, it helps us in our devotional service a lot. I can't speak too well today. Let me just go to somebody else. Thank you, Haribol.
Thank you. Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, could you further continue the discussion?
Well, it's a very difficult act to follow, to try to explain things in more depth than Dharma Bhavana. I occasionally I get the opportunity to speak with Dharma Bhavana and his good wife, and I'm somewhat amazed by the level of determination and steadiness of his good wife. She's a very good preacher, and she encounters many, many different persons from all different kind of groups there in Dallas, Texas. But yet, I see one prominent point, that she is always very fixed up in her devotion and understanding of Srila Prabhupada. She does not waver from that conviction. And this is the same realization I have whenever I speak with one devotee in Sacramento, Bhakti Singh, Bhakti Ram. Although many of these devotees did not have so much personal or living or physical association with Prabhupada, that strong faith, that strong dedication to Srila Prabhupada and his teaching comes true. And you feel it whenever you preach to them, whenever you hear them expressing their realization about Srila Prabhupada, expressing their conviction about Srila Prabhupada. In other words, this is not a body philosophy. This is not a bodily conception of life philosophy. It is a transcendental philosophy. When Prabhupada says in the Bhagavatam, he lives forever by his divine instruction and the follower lives with him, you can experience that. You can see that. Just like this week, I got a call from a devotee in Hamilton, Bhakta Joe Felici. And when I talk to him, I get that same feeling, that same realization that I have whenever I talk to Bhakta Ram, to Dharma Bhavana and his wife, that strong connection with Srila Prabhupada. That these people, they don't think that Prabhupada is dead and gone, he's finished. They have that strong transcendental connection. And you sense that, the way they live their lives, the way they talk about Srila Prabhupada, and the way they conduct themselves. Very important point. Hare Krishna.
Yes, and I wanted to ask Tim Lee Paranjana if he could share a few insights today in today's discussion. I see you're on the call. And we'll go to Balaram after and a few other God brothers and carry on. And I wanted to mention there is some kind of comments on the chat we won't address today. Not necessary. This isn't really the focal point of our discussions. Go ahead, please.
Hi, Bo. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Prabhu.
Okay. Well, I had a very interesting, very long call. It was like over 2.5 hours with a lady who was part of the Narayan group. And
Okay.
it was very interesting because she's gradually starting to realize that, the Narayan group is a little off the rails. And Prabhupada's idea is centered correctly to take us to Krishna. So it was just very interesting. And I don't want to give all the details here, but she told me all kinds of kind of bizarre things that are going on in their mission, which are similar to ISKCON or in some ways worse than ISKCON. So we really need to, stay focused on Prabhupada. That's really the bottom line. And if we do, people like her we'll see. And she said she was been reading my stuff, and she actually said that I saved her life, which is hard to believe, but that's what she said. But anyway, so I wanted to read just a little bit today about how the spiritual master is the external representation of the supersoul, and
Okay, please
how
go ahead.
very important that we connect to the spiritual master as a means of attaining Krishna and connecting with Krishna. That is our connection. And it's sometimes not easy to remember that, how are we connected to Krishna?
Yeah.
So this is Canto 4, Chapter 28.
Canto 4, Chapter 28.
Yeah, Text 42.
Text 42, Chapter
This
4.
is the story of none other than King Paranjan,
Oh,
who became attached to a woman and became a woman in his next life. But anyway, this is the story of Paranjan's husband at the time he was a woman. King Malavajraja could thus observe that the supersoul was sitting by his side, and that he, as the individual soul, was sitting by the side of the supersoul. Since both were together, there was no need for separate interests. Thus he ceased from such activities. Purport. In the advanced stage of devotional service, the devotee does not see anything separate between his own interests and those of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Both interests become one, for the devotee does not act for a separate interest. Whatever he does in the interest of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. At that time, he sees everything in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead in everything. Having attained this stage of understanding, he sees no distinction between the spiritual and material worlds. In perfect vision, the material world becomes a spiritual world due to its being the external energy of the Supreme Lord. For the perfect devotee, the energy and the energetic are non-different. Thus, the so-called material world becomes spiritual. Sarvam kal idam Brahma. Everything is intended for the service of the Supreme Lord, and the expert devotee can utilize any so-called material thing for the Lord's service. One cannot serve the Lord without being situated on the spiritual platform. Thus, if a so-called material thing is dovetailed in the service of the Lord, it is no longer to be considered material. Thus, the pure devotee in his perfect vision sees from all angles. Translation: the daughter of King Vidarbha accepted her husband all in all as the supreme. She gave up all sensual enjoyment and in complete renunciation followed the principles of her husband, who was so advanced. Thus she remained engaged in his service. Purport: figuratively, King Malayadvaja is the spiritual master, and his wife, Vaidarbhi, is the disciple. The disciple accepts the spiritual master as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as stated by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in Guruvastakam, Shakshat Hari Tvena. One directly accepts the Guru, the spiritual master, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One should accept the spiritual master, not in the sense that the Mayavadi philosophers do, but in the way recommended here. Since the spiritual master is the most confidential servitor of the Lord, he should be treated exactly like the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The spiritual master should never be neglected or disobeyed like an ordinary person. If a woman is fortunate enough to be the wife of a pure devotee, she can serve her husband without any desire for sense gratification. If she remains engaged in the service of her exalted husband, she will automatically attain the spiritual perfection of her husband. If a disciple gets a bona fide spiritual master simply by satisfying him, he can attain a similar opportunity to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So one last thing I want to say is I made a little video about the Ritvik issue. Somebody requested me to do that, so I'm going to put a link to it in the chat thing, so people can check it out, and then, tell me what you think about it.
Well, thank you
All
very
right,
much.
Haribol.
Haribol. Yes, that's a very important section of the Bhagavatam, which explains the position of the pure devotee, who is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the pure representative and the via media, the medium for the Supreme Lord. Like Prabhupada said, when I write my books, I like to read them because it is Krishna speaking through me. So Krishna is speaking through the pure devotee, and Prabhupada represented that pure state by his entire life's work. So it's not just that he just got up one day and decided, I think I'll be a pure devotee. He was raised as a devotee of Krishna from birth, and he lived his life a life of dedication to the principles of Krishna consciousness given. And then he met a pure devotee, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami, became his disciple, and carried out his instructions without any ulterior motive except to please the Guru. And so that should be our business as well. And we have Balaram in Australia. I understand you had some problems with the weather there. So How are you, Prabhu? And please share your insights today on these topics.
Jai, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and all the assembled Vaishnavas. Yeah, I think a week ago we had, it seemed like Lord Indra and Vayu were having a party. It was pretty, I think you call it a hurricane over in the States. They're called a cyclone here, and there's still something like 10,000 homes without power. This is after a week. And this is on a major capital city in Australia. So, so much glorification of Srila Prabhupada, very nice to hear. And actually, this is the position. When we take shelter of Srila Prabhupada, we're actually taking shelter under the auspices of Lord Krishna. In the Bhagavad Gita, I was just thinking, especially Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu made a very important point that so many new devotees are coming, and they're also linking in to the potency of Srila Prabhupada, whether they were here. I mean, we're talking now decades since Srila Prabhupada was personally here amongst us. And there's very few of us left, actually. I mean, I'm pushing 80 now, and there's so many of us that are getting, close to the last chapter. But the potency of Srila Prabhupada is still there in his pure unadulterated message. In Bhagavad Gita, I was just thinking in the ninth chapter, I think it's 9:13, Mahatmanastu mampata daivim prakritim ashritaha bhajanchananya manaso yatva bhutadim avyayam. Krishna there says, those great souls who are not deluded are under the protection of the divine nature. They're fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the original and inexhaustible Supreme Personality. So this is the position of Srila Prabhupada. I was reading, actually listening in a lecture yesterday. Prabhupada was talking about the qualities of a Vaishnava, the qualities of a devotee. There's 26 qualities of a devotee. Devotees should study these things and understand, because these are all there in Srila Prabhupada's nature. A very beautiful class Prabhupada was giving in Honolulu. And this was 1974. And Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu would also be aware that time in 1974, there was so much going on at that time with some alternate devotees, missionary devotees. And we had a lot of experience with that in Australia. But Prabhupada was, he was so strong in explaining the nature of the spiritual master and how one has to be. He was saying that to be a disciple, you have to accept the discipline. Prabhupada said, if you don't want to accept the discipline, disciple means discipline. If you don't want to accept that discipline, then don't become a disciple. Don't request, wait. Prabhupada was speaking like that. So those 26 qualities of a devotee, we can see them all manifest in Srila Prabhupada's nature. Everyone, satyam, daya. Prabhupada was truthful. This is the first quality, and that's the main quality that's missing in Kali Yuga now. That's the last leg of Dharma, of the bull, standing on the last leg. And how much truth do we see in society these days now? I mean, politicians, business, religion, everyone is lying. Everyone is lying. So we have to take shelter of the pure, unalloyed devotee. And when we think we can go back to the start of Srimad Bhagavatam, I've just finished the wonderful narration of Srila Prabhupada's concluding chapter on Lord Brahma stealing the cows. That was Krishna's plan, of course. Wonderful pastime. But coming back to the Bhagavatam and reading new verses, or the same verses every time, Nava rasa. The relish is always expanding all the time. Just like we're reading in these Caitanya-caritāmṛta verses, the pastimes between Radha and Krishna, it's constantly expanding. And when we link into this nature, this transcendental spiritual nature that Srila Prabhupada has given us, then we can actually start to experience just a fragment of that. And if we can just experience that and become enthusiastic in our process, but we have to hear from Srila Prabhupada. And as I was saying at the start, this point that Prabhupada is there for everyone at the moment. People that want to cancel him. And this is happening. This is happening. So if we can spread the glories of Srila Prabhupada, that will be the main mission that we can be somewhat satisfied with in our service. So thank you very much for the association. Hare Krishna, glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Yes, Prabhu, that's very true, that the secrets of spiritual life is a mystery for the conditioned soul. And it becomes revealed through the blessings of a bona fide spiritual master. And especially for all of us who are focused every day on reading his books, this is important to note, that you must read the books if you want to become enlightened. It's not an option. If you don't read, how can you learn? There's no one that becomes Krishna conscious without serious study. Prabhupada made this point. You have to be serious about spiritual life. You can't take it whimsically. For example, I was mentioning Yaśodā earlier, that if you chant 16 rounds a day, then that's 27,648 names a day. And if you chant that 365 days a year, that's 10,091,520 names a year. And if you chant over 50 years, there it is. Somehow or other, you get credits in your Krishna conscious bank account. Don't think that you're going to become some great in-depth devotee. You'll be blessed, though, by Krishna and Prabhupada at the time of death if you make a sincere, honest effort to do this process according to his directions, not some concoction by so-called people that are not bona fide spiritual masters. And we have a very interesting Prabhu that I've enjoyed hearing him speak with our group over the last so many weeks on these matters in Miami, Florida. I wish I was there myself. It's a lot warmer than up here in Canada. Nilesh, how are you, Prabhu? Glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Are you on the road again?
No, not really. I'm just returning from some little class which I do with my small little group over here. So that's why I'm unable to join a little earlier. But this is one of my favorite topics which was discussed today. And we as what you call devotees or disciples of Prabhupada, we use these two terms, the pure devotee of the Lord and what you call the bona fide representative of the Lord.
Yes.
We use these two things interchangeably.
Yes.
Now we need to be a little bit careful over here. Prabhupada explains to us very clearly when you read the purport of his Guru Ashtakam. There is a part of the Guru Ashtakam which we chant every day, which is called Praptasya Kalyana Gunarna Vashya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda. Now, remember, you can be a pure devotee of the Lord, but being a bona fide representative of Krishna has to come only through the order of your spiritual master. Yeah. You gain. You Praptasya Kalyana. Kalyana means what? To from the ocean of mercy, the ocean of deliverance, which is Krishna, you get that power to deliver other souls, which makes you the bona fide representative. Now, you may say, is that, okay, so if I'm being a pure devotee is a requirement to become a bona fide representative. That is the part. But if I'm a pure devotee of the Lord, but I'm not bona fide, meaning I've not been told by my Guru Maharaj or ordered by my Guru Maharaj to become a Guru, I have no business to initiate. Now, if I'm truly a pure devotee of the Lord, that means I'm not hankering after anything material. I don't care whether I have disciples or I don't have disciples. I don't care if I have been glorified or I don't be glorified, because I am completely surrendered to Krishna. So only when I'm ordered by my predecessing Guru Maharaj to become a bona fide representative, I can become a bona fide representative. Praptasya kalyana gunarnavasya vande guru Shri Charanaravinda. And we need to hear this purport from Srila Prabhupada's lips. In fact, I had heard it on a YouTube video and then it's suddenly gone to somewhere. But you can look it up even in Vani quotes, and you can look it up and see the difference. So if you're a pure devotee, fine, good for you. But then you'll never yearn to become a Guru Maharaj, because you know that your Guru Maharaj has not ordered you. That is not your place yet. So that is why when that Gujarati gentleman in Nairobi was asking Srila Prabhupada, how did you become Guru? Prabhupada said, I was ordered by my Guru Maharaj to become Guru. I was ordered by my Guru. Then he asked further, how did he order you? Stay within your limits. That's when Prabhupada becomes very angry. Just stay within your limits, because he at that point he said that he ordered me and that is enough for you to know. And that is an interesting conversation over here. And that is what I wanted to do, is share with it. Is that bona fide means when your Guru Maharaj has ordered you, you become the next Guru. Now you're a bona fide representative. You initiate disciples. You take responsibility of these fallen souls to take them home, back to Godhead. Otherwise, just continue your service, your individual service to Krishna in an unalloyed form, and be the pure devotee of the Lord. Hare Krishna.
Yes. Thank you. And remember this, Prabhu, there is Sishya Guru and there is Vartma Padarshika Gurus. And that is also a blissful position to be in, to introduce Krishna, the holy name, to others and help them chant and learn this process of Krishna consciousness. And in this way, this is also being a teacher. We shouldn't overemphasize the position of Guru in the sense that everyone here shares knowledge with other people. And this is going on, like with our friend Garuda. He's a teacher, he's a professor in the university. He's sharing knowledge with people. This is important in Krishna consciousness. And this has been our business pretty much all of our lives, that we've been sharing. Once we got the information, sharing this information with other people, especially if you're in the role in the ISKCON group in the past when they had temple presidents. That was our main work, was to share the knowledge with other people. And when you shared it with them, if they took it up, they started to follow the process for 6 months. They chanted their rounds for 6 months. They followed the regulator principles. They had a really positive attitude. They worked cooperatively with everyone. They weren't trying to destroy the environment that you were creating in the temple. You'd recommend them for initiation, and Prabhupada would accept them, and on we marched. So this business, the guru business of the modern day ISKCON, where there's hundreds of people with millions of dollars in private bank accounts, is not the business of the guru, the bona fide spiritual master. And we're moving to the end of the talk. I'd like Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, if he could further comment on what was just spoken by a few people here.
Well, I think, first of all, the purport that was read by Puranjan was quite significant.
Yeah.
This is a very, very important purport with a lot of very deep meanings. I want to say this. And then the comments by Dr. Nilesh Prabhu are also very significant. This is something that often gets overlooked and misinterpreted of people who claim that they've become guru either by appointment or by election. And when they're confronted by that specific conversation in Nairobi, Kenya, Africa, in October of 1975, when Prabhupada directly says, a guru can only become a guru if he's ordered by his guru. Because this comes up to the point, when did Prabhupada in 1977, in the last few months of his manifested presence, did specifically order any of his disciples, whether it was 11, 23, or 123, to take up the position of Diksha Guru? Our contention is that he never gave that order, and that the only order that he gave, he just wanted initiations to be continued according to the mandate and instruction in the July 9th letter, which he reconfirmed several times after that. Now, many of these people do not accept that because they're trying to rationalize their mistake. Because you cannot become a confidential associate of the Lord by some kind of political appointment or election. That's not how it works. This has to come by realization, by purity. And Srila Prabhupada had no interest whatsoever in repeating the mistake of the Gaudiya Math. Gaudiya Math Part 2 was never in Srila Prabhupada's agenda. He saw the chaos and the madness that followed after his Guru Maharaj's departure. He wanted to prevent that from occurring in his institution. That's why he did not appoint anybody in that capacity. And if anybody has the stomach for it, you can go and listen or study the history of these original 11 and ask yourself the question, would Srila Prabhupada make a mistake of appointing unqualified men or unfit men to the position of Acharya? And my conviction is, and my position is, Prabhupada would not make such a mistake, cannot make such a mistake. Why? Because he's in direct contact with Krishna 24 hours a day. Because the implication is, if we say Prabhupada appointed these people as Diksha Gurus and they've turned out bad, then did Krishna tell Srila Prabhupada to make that mistake of appointing unqualified person? There are many ramifications to this falsehood of so-called appointment. Now, there's many important points here. I see that on this screen, there's somebody who brought up some point. I don't know who that somebody is. He's brought up some good point and certain accusations about a so-called GBC who leveled accusations against the so-called Ritviks, some big GBC Maharaj, that basically, he says there are many big, small Ritvik groups without any central management or authority. Yeah, what we have not done is this centralization and bureaucracy like they have done. That was Prabhupada's order to Karandar on December 1972. Stop the centralization, stop the bureaucracy. There are so many defects. They level criticism at us. They have 2 fingers pointed at us and 3 fingers pointed back at themselves. Before they can criticize anybody, they should clean up their own backyard. That is the first thing. They're not in a position to criticize anybody, especially with their history, with everything else. We're not going to get into it now, but we know their history very well. Whatever Ritvik group are there, their aim is to please Prabhupada and to promote Srila Prabhupada. That is the blessings of Prabhupada upon them, regardless of where they are, what they do, and what they preach. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. And we've come to the end of the program. It's 9:31. And Nadesh, we want to thank you and all of the devotees that have joined us today. We wish we could carry on with the discussion, but it is time to end and move to the kirtan. And I wanted to remind everyone that we will be having, as part of our weekly sadhana program, along with the chanting of your rounds, the offering of prasadam at your home, and the preaching of Krishna consciousness to other people in the role of a Vartma Pradarshika or a Sishya Guru, part of our program to help us all develop our dormant Krishna consciousness. So let's move to the Prabhupada chanting of Hare Krishna at the end of this program. Everybody chant along. And thank you very much for your participation. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Śrīvāsadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Śrīvāsadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Śrīvāsadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Vanchakalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Thanks everybody for participating and all of those who have made comments. Very nice. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.